I'm Rose Carter, 30 years old, and I believed my birthday dinner would be a night worth celebrating. Instead, it turned into the moment everything shifted. Imagine this, a beachfront resort in Myrtle Beach. My family gathered around, glasses clinking, their smiles painted on like masks. Then my sister leaned forward, her tone laced with poison. "Still single at your age? What's there to brag about?" she hissed. The table fell silent. My parents didn't move. A few even laughed under their breath. I forced a grin, my chest tightening. But inside, something broke. That night, I made a decision. The very next morning, I stood at the center of a major project, one tied directly to her top business partner. The moment she saw me, her face drained of color, her perfect little world cracking open. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with her calls. She shouted, "This can't be happening!" Oh, but it was, and I was only getting started. Where are you watching this from? And what time is it where you are? Drop it in the comments. 5 years earlier, I was 25, standing on the edge of a career breakthrough. I'd secured a major client, one that could have made my name in marketing. The long nights, the presentations, the endless revisions, it was my chance to shine. But then, my parents' company, a small marketing agency they'd built from nothing, began to collapse. A bad deal left them buried in debt, about to lose everything. I didn't hesitate. I abandoned my project, left the client behind, and flew home to help. Day and night, I poured my heart into rescuing their business. I built a new campaign, renegotiated deals, and pushed the team to fight back. My strategies pulled the firm from the edge of ruin. I thought they'd finally see my worth. But when the dust cleared, Mom and Dad handed the reins to my sister. They said she was more experienced, that she could keep things steady. My effort, my sacrifice, was brushed aside as if it never existed. They never even thanked me. Devastated, I walked away and started from scratch. I accepted entry-level marketing jobs, clawed my way up, and earned a name for crafting bold campaigns and inventive strategies. I spent weekends studying, took online courses, and worked tirelessly. By 30, I had become a respected marketer, securing clients most people only dreamed about. Yet to my family, I was still unseen. My sister thrived in her spotlight while Mom and Dad never once recognized my grind. Every call, every visit revolved around her success, her leadership, never mine. Their disregard still burned, but I wanted my 30th birthday to be different. I chose a beachfront resort in Myrtle Beach, imagining a simple dinner with my family. Just a night to feel appreciated. I invited my sister, her husband, Mom, and Dad, reserving a private table at the resort's upscale restaurant. I pictured us swapping stories, maybe even laughing like old times. But as I stepped into the dining room that evening, a familiar tension settled in my chest. The mood was off from the start. My sister seized control of the conversation before appetizers even arrived. She reclined in her chair, her tone brimming with pride as she boasted about landing a massive client for our parents' firm. She painted herself as the pillar of the company, the reason it still stood. Her words dripped with triumph as if she alone carried its success. I listened quietly, waiting for a pause to share my own milestones, but she didn't stop, describing every meeting, every handshake in painstaking detail. Her husband sat opposite her, barely paying attention, scrolling on his phone with an indifferent look. He'd nod now and then, mumbling a few words, never once meeting my gaze. Mom hung on every sentence my sister spoke, her face glowing with admiration, as though no one else existed. Dad sat silently, swirling his drink, only humming in vague acknowledgement. I tried to contribute. I mentioned a recent campaign that earned me praise and secured a high-profile client, a real milestone for me. Mom smiled politely, replying, "That sounds lovely, dear," before turning back to ask my sister about her next big deal. Dad didn't even glance up. I swallowed hard, forcing a smile through the rejection stung. I tried again, mentioning a marketing award I'd been nominated for, thinking it might finally catch their attention. My sister cut me off mid-sentence, steering the conversation back to her latest venture, her voice drowning out mine. Mom nodded eagerly, and Dad gave a lazy shrug as if my words held no weight. The entire table became a stage for her, and I was just part of the audience. I kept nodding, pretending to engage, but each exchange made me feel smaller. I had spent weeks planning this dinner, hoping it would be a night where I mattered. Instead, their indifference was suffocating. My sister's voice grew louder as she recounted how she'd wowed a room full of executives. Her husband finally looked up, laughing at one of her stories, but didn't even glance my way. Mom reached over to pat her hand, praising her for holding the family together. Dad murmured his agreement, still fixated on his drink. I sipped my wine, trying to hide the ache spreading through my chest. I brought up one final thing, a new project I was leading, one I'd poured my soul into. I hoped this time they'd care. But my sister smirked, effortlessly shifting the topic to her upcoming presentation. Mom's eyes followed her and Dad nodded absent-mindedly. The message was crystal clear. My achievements meant nothing. I kept my smile steady, masking the sting, but inside I felt myself fading. The clinking glasses and hollow laughter around me only deepened the emptiness. This was supposed to be my celebration, my milestone. Instead, I was just a bystander in their performance. As the night dragged on, the weight of their neglect pressed harder. I excused myself to the restroom, staring into the mirror, wondering why I still tried. I returned to the table with another practiced smile, but the knot in my chest only tightened. I wanted to belong, to feel like part of this family, but their actions screamed otherwise. The tension was building, and I wasn't sure how long I could hold myself together. Then, as the main course was served, my sister leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with malice. The chatter had faded, and for a moment I thought maybe we could move past the discomfort. I was wrong. She set her glass down with a sharp clink, commanding attention. Then, loud enough for the entire table to hear, she said, "Still single at your age? What's there to be proud of?" Her words hit like a slap. Cold, sharp, deliberate. The room seemed to freeze around me. I stared at her, my breath catching, waiting for someone, anyone, to break the silence. No one did. Her husband let out a faint chuckle, his eyes still glued to his phone as if her cruelty was just harmless teasing. Mom shifted uncomfortably, her lips pressed tight, but said nothing, her gaze fixed on her plate. Dad took a slow sip of his drink, his face unreadable, like he hadn't even heard. The silence hung heavy, thick with humiliation. I felt the weight of their stares, or their avoidance, each second stretching the sting deeper. My sister leaned back, that smug smile curling on her lips, satisfied with the wound she'd opened. I forced a small smile, my lips trembling. "Just enjoying my own path," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. Inside, my heart pounded, a storm of shock and hurt twisting in my chest. Her words echoed, slicing sharper with every replay. I'd spent years swallowing their disregard, but this time it was different. Public, personal, and cruel. I looked around the table, searching for even a flicker of support. Mom avoided my gaze, busy folding her napkin. Dad gave a small, distracted nod. Her husband didn't even look up. The betrayal sat heavy, raw, and suffocating. Trying to shift the mood, I asked Mom about her garden, desperate to steer the conversation somewhere safe. But my sister wasn't done. She smirked and said, "I mean, some people peak early, right? Not everyone can keep up." Her tone was light, but the venom was unmistakable. This time, her husband snorted a half laugh that twisted my stomach. Mom murmured something vague about the food, still refusing to meet my eyes. Dad just shrugged, his attention drifting elsewhere. My grip on the fork tightened until my knuckles turned white, but I kept my expression calm, pretending it didn't faze me. The hurt built inside me, pressure rising to the point of breaking. I wanted to scream, to call out their silence, their complicity. But instead, I took a slow sip of water, my hand shaking slightly. I made small talk, forcing normalcy, my voice tight and brittle. But the damage was done. Each word from her mouth was a reminder of how little I mattered. This dinner was supposed to make me feel celebrated, loved, part of them. Instead, I was a target, and they were all fine with it. When dessert arrived, I couldn't take it anymore. My sister's smug glances, my parents' quiet acceptance. It was too much. I excused myself, claiming I needed air, and walked out of the restaurant, my steps quick, my chest aching with anger and grief. Outside, the cool night breeze brushed my face, but it didn't soothe the pain. I stood by the railing overlooking the waves, staring into the dark horizon, feeling the weight of their betrayal. I had spent years earning their respect, craving their love. And in one cruel moment, my sister destroyed it all, while the others sat silent. That night, something in me shattered. But it also ignited something fierce, something unyielding. That spark carried me back to my hotel room, my heart still raw from the night's cruelty. I sank onto the bed, the quiet of the room jarring after all the noise. My sister's words replayed endlessly, each echo deepening the wound. I had spent my life chasing their approval, sacrificing dreams to keep their world intact, only to be discarded. As I stared at the ceiling, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. An email notification lit up the screen. It was from Marie, my sister's most trusted business partner. She'd bragged about Marie for months. Curious, I opened it. The email was brief but electrifying. Marie was heading a major marketing project for a national brand and wanted me to join as a lead strategist. She'd seen my campaigns, admired my results, and believed I could bring this vision to life. My pulse quickened. This was the kind of chance I'd been working toward for years, the one that could define my career. But as I reread her words, doubt crept in. My family's indifference, their constant dismissal, haunted me. Would taking this trigger another round of judgment? Another storm of mockery? I set my phone down, pacing the room as memories flooded back. The sleepless nights saving my parents' company, the sacrifices they ignored, the praise they handed to my sister. Even tonight, their silence had screamed louder than her insults. I had given them everything, and they'd given nothing in return. Enough was enough. I stopped pacing, the decision forming sharp and certain. I wasn't living in their shadows anymore. This project was mine, not my sister's, not my family's, mine. Sitting at the desk, I opened my laptop and began typing a reply to Marie. I expressed my excitement, outlined my vision, and confidently confirmed my role as lead strategist. My fingers trembled as I hit send, but it wasn't fear this time. It was resolve. I was done being small, done being invisible, done letting her win. The next morning, I called Marie. Her tone was warm yet professional, genuinely impressed by my ideas. She never once mentioned my sister, which told me everything. This was my moment, my chance to rise on my own. We finalized the timeline, and I threw myself into the work. Strategies, competitor research, creative outlines, audience plans. Every idea, every draft felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Each step forward was an act of quiet revenge, proof that I'd finally taken my power back. But as I worked, part of me prepared for the inevitable fallout. My sister's entire reputation at the family company depended on her connection with Marie. If I took the lead on this project, it would tip the balance, and I knew she wouldn't take it quietly. Mom and Dad would likely side with her, as always, urging me to back down. But this time I refused to yield. I'd spent years putting their needs before mine, only to be rewarded with contempt. By the end of the day, I had a rough outline of the project plan complete. I saved the file, shut my laptop, and exhaled slowly. For the first time in years, I felt control, like I was finally choosing myself. The pain from that dinner still lingered, but it now fueled something sharper. A fire to prove them wrong, to show what I could truly do. The storm was brewing, but I was ready to face it. The morning after confirming my role with Marie, my phone rang. It was Mom. Her tone was clipped, the kind she used when she wanted something handled. "We need to talk about your sister," she began, not even bothering to ask how I was. She dove straight into a lecture about family responsibility, insisting I step in to help with a new client pitch at their company. "Your sister's overwhelmed," she added, as if it was my duty to fix it. My jaw tightened around the phone. I'd heard this script too many times. The endless expectation to hold my sister up, no matter what it cost me. Before I could respond, Dad joined the call, his tone firm and heavy. "You need to think about what's best for the family," he said. "Your sister's carrying the business. You can't just focus on yourself." The message was clear. My goals came second. I tried explaining that I was leading a major project, something that could change my career, but Mom cut in sharply. "Don't be selfish," she snapped. "Your sister needs your help, like always." The words stung, a brutal echo of every dismissal I'd swallowed over the years. I ended the call, hands trembling, but the pressure didn't stop there. Later that day, I opened social media and froze. My sister had posted a long, dramatic rant. Her words dripped with poison. She called me ungrateful, accused me of abandoning the family for my fancy little career. She painted herself as the martyr, claiming I'd always been too self-absorbed to care about anyone but me. The post was public, tagged with our parents' names, already gathering likes and sympathetic comments from their friends. My stomach twisted as I read them, people calling me selfish, blind to the truth. I wanted to reply, to expose every lie, to show everything I'd sacrificed. But I stopped myself. Responding would only drag me back into her chaos, and I was done playing her game. Instead, I sat at my desk, staring at Marie's project plan. This was my chance to rise, to stand on my own merit. I wouldn't let their guilt trips or manipulation pull me under again. That evening, Mom called once more, her tone sharper than before. "I saw you haven't offered to help yet," she said, as if I'd failed some unspoken duty. "Your sister's under pressure and you're just sitting there." I could hear Dad in the background muttering about loyalty. I took a breath and said calmly, "I'm not sacrificing my career for her anymore. I've done enough." Silence filled the line, then Mom's voice turned icy. "You're making a big mistake," she warned. "Family comes first." I hung up, my pulse racing but my thoughts clear. Their anger didn't weaken me. It solidified my resolve. Her post, their guilt, their refusal to ever see me as more than her backup. It all confirmed what I already knew. They'd never value me the way they valued her. But I wasn't their safety net anymore. I turned back to my work, channeling every ounce of frustration into focus. I refined the project, tightening every section, making it flawless. Each line I wrote felt like another step away from their grip. My sister could post her lies, and my parents could preach loyalty until their voices cracked. I didn't care. I was done bending. For the first time, I felt their weight lifting, replaced by something liberating. The unshakable certainty that I was finally walking my own path. A week after my parents' calls, I found myself back at the family company's office, finalizing my project plan for Marie. The place buzzed with its usual energy, phones ringing, employees darting between meetings, but I kept my focus steady, determined not to lose momentum. That's when my sister burst in. Her face was flushed, eyes sharp with fury as she stormed straight to my desk. "You need to stop this nonsense with Marie," she snapped, her voice loud enough to make heads turn. "You're sabotaging my position, and you know it." The accusation cut through the room, sharp and personal. I leaned back, keeping my expression neutral even as my pulse quickened. Calmly, I asked her to explain. She crossed her arms, words spilling out in a rush. "Marie's my contact," she hissed. "I built that relationship. You're stealing my spotlight, trying to make me look bad." Her entitlement was astounding, as if my work existed only to serve her. I reminded her that Marie had reached out to me directly, impressed by my recent campaigns, not hers. She scoffed, rolling her eyes. "You're out of your league," she sneered. "Step back before you embarrass yourself. And the family." Her threat was obvious, but I didn't flinch. I rose to meet her glare. "I'm not backing down," I said evenly. "This is my project, my chance, and I've earned it." Her jaw tightened. For a second, I thought she'd lash out again, but instead she spun around and stormed off, her heels striking the floor like gunfire. The confrontation rattled me, but it also solidified my resolve. I was done letting her dictate my worth. Days later came the real test. Marie had scheduled a meeting at the company to review the project, and I'd prepared down to the smallest detail. Charts, data, full strategy laid out to perfection. I arrived early, setting up in the conference room, nerves steady but alert. When Marie entered, her presence filled the space. Sharp suit, calm confidence, every inch the powerhouse she was. I greeted her warmly and we dove into the agenda. Then the door opened again. My sister strode in uninvited, her expression tight, surprise and irritation flickering across her face when she saw me beside Marie. The meeting began and I took the lead. I presented with precision and clarity, walking through every slide, each point backed by research and strategy. Marie listened intently, nodding, her questions quick and insightful, and I met each one head-on. My sister tried to interject, tossing in comments about her own contributions, but Marie's focus never wavered from me. Her approval showed in the small, thoughtful nods she gave. Halfway through, I decided to make my move. "This builds on the campaign I developed years ago," I said, looking straight at my sister. "The one that saved this company when it was struggling." The room fell silent. My sister's eyes widened, her composure slipping. She hadn't expected me to claim my work publicly. Marie raised a brow, clearly intrigued. "I didn't realize that was your campaign," she said, her tone impressed. I nodded calmly. "I've been behind a lot of things here," I replied, "but I'm ready to step into the light now." My sister's face flushed crimson, her fingers tightening on the table. She tried to change the subject, bringing up her recent deals, but Marie gently steered the conversation back to my plan. By the time the meeting ended, Marie was fully convinced, praising my work as visionary and confirming me as project lead. My sister sat in stunned silence, her confidence shattered. She'd spent years standing in my spotlight. But now in front of Marie, the truth was undeniable. Her control was slipping. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. My victory was in the work itself, in finally being seen for what I'd always been capable of. That meeting was a turning point, but the ripple effects were only beginning. A few days later, Marie invited me to a private meeting at a quiet downtown cafe. Her expression was serious and I braced myself, unsure what was coming. Over coffee, she leaned forward. "I need to be honest with you," she said. "Your sister's been taking credit for your work for years." She explained how my sister had passed off my campaigns as her own to secure Marie's trust as a partner. But after digging into company records and watching my performance firsthand, Marie had connected the dots. "You're the real talent here," she said firmly. "I'm backing you, not her." Her words hit hard, a mix of validation and anger swelling in my chest. I'd always suspected my sister had stolen my credit, but hearing it confirmed by someone like Marie made it real. She promised to set things straight with the company's stakeholders, to make sure my name was finally recognized. I thanked her, voice steady though my heart pounded. For the first time, someone outside my family truly saw me, and it felt like the weight of years lifted off my shoulders. The fallout came fast. My parents, who managed the company's operations, launched an internal review after hearing from Marie. They went through old project files, emails and client reports, uncovering a pattern of my sister claiming my strategies as hers. The evidence was damning. My late-night drafts, my carefully detailed plans, all stamped with her name in presentations. By the end of the week, they called a board meeting. I wasn't invited, but the news spread quickly. My sister had been stripped of her managerial title, demoted to a junior role, with a warning that her job hung by a thread. The office was buzzing with whispers, her empty corner office now a symbol of her downfall. I stayed focused on my work, refusing to engage in gossip. But the next day, Mom and Dad appeared at my desk. Their faces were pale, their usual confidence dimmed by guilt. Mom spoke first, voice soft. "We didn't realize how much you did for us," she said quietly. "We trusted your sister too much." Dad nodded, eyes downcast. "We need you to step up and help fix this mess," he admitted. "The company's struggling without her leadership." Their plea caught me off guard, but it didn't shake me. I'd spent years cleaning up their mistakes, patching the holes they'd created, only to be overlooked every single time. And now, after everything, they wanted me to save them again. I took a slow breath, steady and sheer. "I'm not responsible for fixing this," I said, my tone calm but final. "I've given enough. It's time you figure this out without me." Mom's eyes widened, and Dad's jaw tightened, but I didn't waver. Their silence said everything, and they knew I was right. I turned and walked away, my steps lighter than they'd ever been. My sister's downfall wasn't my victory. It was her consequence, the price of her own deceit. I didn't feel joy in her fall, but I felt something better. Freedom. Marie's faith in me had given me the foundation I'd needed for years. A platform built on merit and recognition, not family politics. I wasn't going back to being their backup plan. I returned to my desk and threw myself into my work, pouring every ounce of focus into the campaign. It was gaining traction fast. Marie's endorsement opened doors to bigger clients, new partnerships, and opportunities to lead on my own terms. From time to time, I'd hear whispers about my sister, how she was scrambling to repair her reputation, desperately trying to hold on to what little credibility she had left. But it was too late. The truth had surfaced, and the company was changing. Mom and Dad were finally facing the mess they'd ignored for so long. I didn't owe them forgiveness, and I certainly didn't owe them help. I'd built something of my own now, and I wasn't about to carry their burdens anymore. With the truth out, I was ready to close that chapter for good. Months after the investigation ended, I made a decision to walk away completely. I stopped answering Mom's calls, ignored Dad's emails, and blocked my sister's number. Their attempts to pull me back into their chaos no longer had power over me. I'd spent too many years fighting for their approval, only to realize they were never capable of giving it. Walking away wasn't easy. There were moments when doubt crept in, flashes of old memories, birthdays and laughter that felt like another lifetime. But each step away was a piece of myself reclaimed. My focus shifted entirely to my own career. The project with Marie thrived beyond expectations, earning praise from clients and attracting national attention. Marie became more than a collaborator. She became a mentor, someone who valued my vision and challenged me to aim higher. Together, we landed a major contract that solidified my place in the industry. I moved into a new office, one I chose myself, bright, open, and far from the shadow of the family company. Every day I felt stronger, more grounded, more me. Meanwhile, my sister's world crumbled. After her demotion, she couldn't regain her footing. Clients distanced themselves, wary of her reputation for dishonesty. The board, led by our parents, eventually stripped her of the few responsibilities she had left. She wasn't the golden child anymore, and her desperate attempts to rebuild her image only fell flat. I heard through former coworkers that her marriage was falling apart too, strained under the weight of her professional collapse. Mom and Dad scrambled to hold the company together, hiring outside consultants to patch the holes she'd left behind. They were on their own now, forced to face the fallout of their own choices. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate their pain. Their downfall was self-inflicted, a result of years of misplaced trust and blind favoritism. I chose instead to put my energy where it mattered, into building a life that was fully mine. I surrounded myself with people who saw my worth, who celebrated my wins without envy and offered comfort without judgment. For the first time in my life, I wasn't defined by my family's expectations or my sister's shadow. I was free. Looking back, I realized the hardest lesson wasn't about them, it was about me. I'd spent so long believing that love meant sacrifice, that family meant giving until I was empty. But that night at the dinner table, when my sister mocked me and everyone stayed silent, something in me shifted forever. I learned that love starts with self-respect, with boundaries that protect your peace. I stopped chasing their validation and started honoring myself instead. It was painful, deeply painful, but it was worth it. If you're listening to this, I want you to remember this one thing. Don't let anyone, not even family, dim your light. People will try to keep you small so they can feel big, but you don't owe them your dreams. Set boundaries even when it hurts, even when it means walking away. Your worth isn't measured by their approval. It's defined by your choices, your growth, your courage. I found mine the moment I chose myself. Now, as I sit in my new office looking out at a city that feels full of promise, I know I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. The scars from my family's betrayal are still there, faint but present. Yet they don't define me anymore. They remind me of what I overcame, of the strength it took to rise above. I'm no longer the woman forcing a smile at that dinner table. I'm someone new, someone who knows her worth and isn't afraid to live it.